Hello and welcome to the Gravel Ride podcast, where we go deep on the sport of gravel cycling through in-depth interviews with product designers, event organizers, and athletes who are pioneering the sport. I'm your host, Craig Dalton, a lifelong cyclist who discovered gravel cycling back in 2016 and made all the mistakes you don't need to make. I approach each episode as a beginner to unlock all the knowledge you need to become a great gravel cyclist. This week on the podcast, I'm welcoming Eric Sutter. He's the race director and founder of OpenRange Gravel in Kansas. The event takes place in April every year and is going on to its 7th edition in 2024. I'm going to flag this right away. Registration's opening this coming weekend, November 25th after Thanksgiving. So make sure to check it out if you're interested after hearing Eric's journey to becoming a gravel race organizer. It's quite a fascinating journey. He's not someone who started riding gravel bikes ages ago. He picked it up after coming into the world of endurance athletics via kayaking, of all things. I hope you enjoy the conversation, but before we dive in, I do need to thank this week's sponsor, Hammerhead, and the Hammerhead Karoo 2 computer. It's been a minute since I've spoken about the Hammerhead Karoo 2 computer. It's my daily computer on my gravel bike. I enjoy it a whole hell of a lot, if you'll pardon my French. It's one of those devices that continues to grow and evolve over time. And I think that's what I like so much about the Hammerhead device. I'm getting a software update every few weeks, and sometimes it's spot on and something I'm using, and sometimes it's something that I don't know I need to use or would even want to use. For example, it was probably 3 or 4 months ago, I got an update around accommodating e-bike features. And since I wasn't an e-bike rider, I didn't have a lot of need for it. But lo and behold, and this is my dirty little secret, I am now the owner of a e-mountain bike. So I'm excited to explore the features and functionality that I can bring to the Karoo 2, just to understand battery life of my motor and my battery, and make sure I don't get lost out there without the power to come home. Don't worry, I'm still a fan of pedaling my bike. I just thought it would be a lot of fun getting an e-mountain bike. The other thing, as you know, if you've heard me talk about the Hammerhead Karoo 2 before, I love the elevation and climb feature that they rolled out quite some time ago. With the climbing feature, you can see what's ahead of you in any climb that you're approaching, whether you have a map loaded or not. For me, it's really helpful if I'm in new terrain, just understanding, am I in for a long grind or is this a shorter climb where I can really push? As we're coming into winter, it's important that the Karoo 2 has both touchscreen capabilities, but also physical buttons. So if you've got some heavy duty gloves on, you can still manipulate the device and go to all the screens you need. Right now, our listeners can get a free heart rate monitor with the purchase of our Hammerhead Karoo 2. Simply visit hammerhead.io right now and use the promo code TheGravelRide at checkout to get yours today. This is an exclusive offer, so don't forget that promo code TheGravelRide. You'll get that free heart rate monitor with the purchase of your Karoo 2. Go to hammerhead.io today, add both items to your cart, and use the promo code TheGravelRide. With that business behind us, let's get right into my conversation with Eric. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks for having me on.
I didn't think this was a long time coming, but as we just remembered, this is about 3.5 years in the making since our first email exchange.
That's right. Yeah, we sent a couple of emails back and forth, and then I think life just happened, and stuff gets passed on, and but it's good to be here. Good to finally be on and get to talk with you and your listeners.
Right on. Yeah. Shout out to Wade for reconnecting us and telling me a little bit about your story, which I see you gave me in your 2020 email. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to talk about both the OpenRange 200K, but also I think it's important when we talk about events and event organizing, just to hear a little bit about your backstory. So to set the stage, why don't you just let the listeners know, where'd you grow up? What'd you do as a kid? How'd you get into endurance athletics? I know there's a lot to this story, so we can take it slowly bit by bit.
Yeah, and feel free to interrupt me at any point to dive in more. So I grew up in Pratt. It's about an hour and a half west of Wichita, which most people are probably familiar with the general area of where Wichita is, in south central Kansas. It's a town of about 6,000 and just a small, independent, isolated community. And so in high school, played sports, played baseball and football and wrestled. And then, went from there, went to college at Kansas State. I did Army and ROTC. And so I knew at that point, like going into the Army is what I wanted to do. And so did that, commissioned, and actually went into aviation. So flew, and still currently fly helicopters for the Army.
Oh, wow. And did that initially take you outside of Kansas when you
Yeah,
got first deployed?
yeah, it did. So, and I really had only lived in the Midwest, Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, growing up, and so my first kind of visit outside, besides just you having vacation somewhere, was down to Southern Alabama, which was kind of a culture shock. So, went down there for flight training, and then I lived in Tennessee, Kentucky area for most of my active duty years.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine most of us who haven't been in the military have an understanding that there's a physical fitness component
Right.
of it. Do soldiers tend to recreate athletically? Did you
Yeah,
tend to?
yeah, definitely. So for aviation, ultimate frisbee is kind of the sport of choice that
Okay.
we play. So and some people have like are doing marathons and stuff like that. But and I try to keep in shape. It's always been important for me. So trying to do we have our physical fitness test and everything like that. So trying to be in as good a shape as I can.
Yeah. So it sounds like probably a little bit of running here
Right.
and
Oh
there.
yeah,
Some
definitely.
ultimate frisbee.
Yeah.
Where else did the military journey take you?
So Tennessee and Kentucky is where I was stationed, and then did some deployments. So deployed to Iraq in 2005, 2006. Then went to Afghanistan in 2014, and then another deployment to Kuwait in 2017, 2018.
Okay.
So kind
Yeah.
of
And then
go ahead.
then you end up back in
Yeah.
Kansas.
So then ended up back in Kansas, and kind of in the middle of that, went off active duty and joined the National Guard and reserves, and so now I'm a reserve pilot.
Okay.
So
Great. Well, first
yeah.
off, thank you
Oh,
for your
thanks.
service.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it sounds like along the way you were sort of, as many of us do in our 20s and 30s, kind of dipping a toe in the water into different sports.
Yeah.
What were you doing along the way?
Yeah, so really is when I came off active duty and we moved back to Kansas City. I was looking for something to stay active, and I watched the news one night, and they were showing these kayakers that were going across the state of Missouri. And I looked at my wife, and I was like, "That sounds kind of neat." I think I'd like to do that. And again, looking for something to stay active. I was playing ultimate frisbee with a local little club, but I wanted something a little bit more to really stay involved in something to stay active. So the first
What
year,
kind of waterways did you have access to kind of learn the sport of kayaking?
yeah, so we've got a couple lakes around, and so we'll we'll do that. And there was a club that would meet up, and so that's a great thing with like Facebook and things like that, is finding these little clubs and organizations. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I met up. I found a race that was happening. Oh man, going back, just thinking about this, like the first race, I think it was 12 miles, and it was kind of a show and go. No, no awards or anything like that. Just
Yeah.
bring your boat and let's go race them. I had no clue what I was doing. I had
And
this.
I have no idea how long a 12-mile kayak race would take someone.
So generally, in our kayaks, you should be able to do about 5 miles an hour. Is a kind of a moderate to fast pace.
Okay.
7 miles an hour, you're booking it. So especially on flat water.
Yeah.
So a 12 mile would be about 2 hours. And
Gotcha. Yeah, and I've done a little bit of paddling, and
mhm,
there's definitely an analogy to pedaling,
mhm,
and just in terms of the cadence of your
right.
arms and your body and
Mhm.
that repetitive motion that every time I've rode or paddled, like it does appeal to me much in the same way riding a bike appeals to me.
Right. Yeah. And it's kind of the same thing. You can go to a certain level of exertion, and then like your gains just don't go much higher for the amount of energy it takes to go faster. You just hit that drag coefficient,
Yeah.
and but yeah.
So it sounds like you got sucked into the sport of kayaking at
I
that point.
I did, yeah. Like I said, the first time I was terrible. I didn't have any technique. I didn't know what I was doing. Got out there, had this boat that was like 60 pounds, just this heavy plastic boat um, with a paddle that was not efficient in the water at all. But what I found was like the people there were awesome. They were just they didn't give me a hard time for having a cheap plastic boat or anything like that, and they're all in these, as you know, in California, like these surf skis. I mean, these 18-20 foot long, you know 22-inch wide sit on top kayaks, and they
Yeah.
just, like I said, they just completely blew me out of the water. And so, but again, what I learned was that these people were just really good people, really great people, and that's probably more what sucked me into it, was just these awesome people that I was getting to
Yeah.
meet and everything. So and
Yeah.
the benefit of staying active.
Yeah, it's so interesting with endurance athletic, and particularly like the more extreme ones, like ultra running
Hmm.
or something like that. The communities are just like, wear what you want, show up what you
Right.
want, show up with a good attitude.
Yeah,
Let's all get this done. And it is so refreshing and inviting.
it is. Yeah, I can't say enough. And those people, still good friends with several of them that I met that first race, and this was 12 years ago now. So
So tell me about this event across Missouri. One, I have to
yeah.
ask what waterway goes all the way across Missouri?
So it's the
And two, how long is it?
Yeah, so it's the Missouri River. You start in Kansas City, and it's a 340-mile race, and that generally takes, the fastest can do it in the mid 30 hours, 36, 35 hours, I think, is the fastest time.
And you
And then
benefiting from a bit of current?
a little bit, so you can get
Yeah.
2 to 3 mile an hour add on to your flat water speed at that point, and
Okay.
it varies in different places, where other waterways come in. Other rivers will meet the Missouri. You kind of get a boost and whatnot. So as you get
Yeah.
closer to St. Louis, you get a little bit faster. So yeah.
And with a 35-hour race for the fastest people in the world, many are going 40, 50 hours, I imagine.
Mhm.
What does it look like stopping and refueling? How does that work in a kayak event?
Yeah, so I'd say at least every 50 miles is a ramp, a boat ramp on the Missouri River, and so you have a ground crew, and they meet you at each place, and they've got all your. It depends on how you set them up. I mean, mine was my parents, and so I had set up bags and resupply and stuff like that, and they
Yeah.
would have some extra water bladders, and so I'd swap out water bladders and swap out my nutrition and put it in a little cooler behind my seat, and then go on. And so yeah, I did it 3 years. The first year I was in an outrigger, and I DNF'd that year. I made it about 100 and I think 130 miles, and I just had the tremendous back pain, and just wasn't going to work to go on. And so I kind of
Yeah.
came back after that and figured out, okay, I want to do this a little bit different. So I got a canoe that was really light, Kevlar, Kevlar fiber canoe, and did that my second event. And then the third time I got to a surf ski and did it in a surf ski.
Okay.
And so that
Yeah.
was a lot of fun, and it goes a lot faster.
Well, the listener will have to forgive me in this detour down to kayak
Yeah.
racing, but I just
No,
find it fascinating.
well, and it's interesting, being a race director now. Like, a lot of the things that I learned is from the kayak world and going to the different kayak races, things I wanted to do and things I wanted to make sure that we didn't do. And so yeah, it played a role into the creation of what I do and the race that we put on. So
Interesting. So at some point, do you wind down your kayaking career, or are you still doing that?
no, I wound it down. I think I own a paddle still and a life jacket, but I don't have any boats anymore. And so I tried doing both for a while, and I just found like I wasn't doing anything in the kayaking side. And the long distance kayaking, it really takes a toll on your ground crew. And my parents don't live local, and I was using my wife's father, And they're just, they're getting older, and it wasn't fair to them to have to
Yeah.
have them help me out, and my parents would help on the MR 340 that went across Missouri, and it was just getting to be to where that long distance was kind of a struggle for getting a crew to help me out.
Yeah, makes sense. At this point in the podcast, I don't think we've mentioned a bicycle once.
Yeah.
So when did bicycles and gravel riding come into your life?
Yeah, so that's an interesting story too. Like you said, we got all these different little tidbits that spider webs or however you want to call them. But in 2017, I was getting ready for a deployment to Kuwait. I knew I wasn't going to be able to kayak in Kuwait, and I was kind of looking for another challenge, and I started getting into running. I did a half marathon in April of that year, and thought, well, this is, I really liked it. And equipment wise, running just requires your shoes, and so I thought this would be kind of a neat sport to get into. And I think it was May or June of that year, I was running and injured my knee, and I don't know what happened. I had an MRI done on it. It was kind of inconclusive, but it was enough to where I knew that running was now not not a good choice for me to continue on doing if I wanted to walk later. So I kind of hung that up. And then as I got into Kuwait, I got involved with they had a cycling class there, so I got involved with cycling overseas. And I've had some friends that did Dirty Kansas at the time, and talked with them, and I kind of looked, and I was like, man, this looks like fun. Like this could be the sport I get into next. And didn't need a ground crew to shuttle my nutrition from one spot to another. I can carry it on me or on the bike, or have an aid station. And so then I just kind of got the bug and got interested in looking at different gravel races. And I knew based on just a little bit of watching and the friends that I knew that did gravel, like my personality wasn't a road type, wasn't necessarily a mountain bike type, but like the gravel seemed to resonate with my personality and the stuff I had done before with the kayaking.
Were you able to acquire a bike while you were in Kuwait, or did you have to wait till you came back home?
Yeah. So in Kuwait, they have a program over there where we could rent a bike over there. They were nothing special. They were Mongoose, Walmart kind of mountain bikes, full suspension, but it was something, and it at least got me back into cycling. And I rode that thing. I mean, I probably rode it more than anyone else around there. Rode it when it was 120 degrees out and whatnot. And it was kind of interesting because as the idea for OpenRange was kind of festering in my head, and I knew it was sandy out in around Pratt. Of course, I'm in Kuwait, which is a big desert. So I would test the bike on different types of sand there, and like, okay, yeah, you can do this. And so, it was kind of an interesting go with that. But yeah, they do have bikes over there, and was able to get miles in there.
When you came back to the States, did you get your first proper gravel bike?
I did. And in fact, I ordered it while I was in Kuwait. I ordered, it was a Diamondback Honjo off of Amazon. It was on sale for a really, really good price with pretty decent specs. And so I had it delivered to the house. I just told the wife, like, hey, you're going to get this box. It's going to be
leave it in the garage.
Pretty big.
I'll build it later.
Just be careful with it, and whatnot. So so she got it and had it ready for me when I got home. So.
And were you in Kansas City at that point?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you come home, you got your Diamondback, you're finally on a proper gravel bike. Did you sort of immediately start getting into the community and talking to people and figuring out where to ride, or did that take a while?
Yeah, no, well, so I guess we should really even back up before that. So, cause we can't go on without actually starting to talk about OpenRange, if that's cool with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that really came first in a way.
That's so interesting. You're riding this Walmart Mongoose in the desert, and you're thinking about creating a race.
Right. So and even to back up even more, if the listeners and viewers can follow, but while I was kayaking, I wanted to become a race director and set up my own race, kayak race. And so I had an interest, and I kind of figured out a place to do it down in Wichita. And it was very early on in my process for kind of researching it, but I really felt like I wanted to put something together. So then, now fast forward back to Kuwait, as I'm getting into looking at cycling and going to spin class, and I've got this Mongoose mountain bike that I'm riding all over the base. I get this feeling again that I got this calling that I need to put a race on, and it's not going to be a kayak race; it's going to be a bike race. And so I had some time and just started researching gravel bike races, and where I'm from in Pratt, just south of there is the Gypsum Hills, Medicine Hills, or Red Hills. They go by several different names. And I remember when we first came to that area, just how beautiful it was. And so I thought at first that I was just going to put this, it wasn't even going to be a race. It was just going to be me riding from Pratt, where I have some family still. I was going to go down. There's a little bar in a very sleepy town of about maybe 200 people, if that, and go down there and have a burger and then ride back. And that'd be about a 60-mile ride. And then it kind of just one thing led to another. And I was like, well, what if we made this a race? What if we made this, a ride down there? People get to see this awesome area of the country that no one knows about. And so kind of one thing led to another, and it developed in, and okay, well, what if we did this? And what if we did that? And so, yeah, it just blossomed from there. And I don't know if you've ever had anything, but it wouldn't leave my mind for like 3 or 4 months. I mean, every waking moment I was thinking about it. I was thinking, okay, how can we do this? How do we solve that problem? What do we do for this? And yeah, it really felt like a calling that, like, it would feel weird not to do it, at that point.
Yeah.
Even though I'd never been to a gravel race myself. It just felt weird. Like, if I didn't do this, and if we didn't do it at this point, it was never going to get done. And yeah, if I didn't do it, it was going to feel weird. It was an opportunity.
It's fascinating to sort of learn about, and you'll tell us about in the future, like how the event ended up, not having the context of trying to be an Unbound or trying to be a BWR, or any of these other things you may have seen or heard about. You had this unique experience with kayak racing and endurance athletics through a totally different filter,
right?
And came back with this vision for creating the OpenRange. It's super interesting.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's it was interesting the first year, and I think it went split. I mean, it really had a lot of great comments. In fact, the timer guy, he saw that I was a first time race director, and he said later, he's like, yeah, I was really worried, because usually first time race directors, don't know what they're doing, and I've got to do everything for them. And he's like, you had this thing nailed. And they'd actually asked later on if I would help out with some of their races, stuff like that. But
nice.
Yeah, it was, not having been to one, I didn't know, besides doing some research and watching YouTube videos, I didn't have anything that I was trying to make it. I didn't, road wise or terrain wise, everything was open game to me, because I wasn't trying to be like another race. So,
yeah. Before we started recording, we were talking about the state of Kansas and how different the geography can be. As some listeners may be familiar with the Flint Hills where Unbound gravel occurs, maybe take a moment and describe in your own words, how is it different around Pratt compared to what people may have seen around Emporia?
Yeah, so Pratt, like right around Pratt's actually fairly flat, some undulating hills. But as you go south, and it doesn't take long coming out of Pratt, and as you go south, you start getting into the Gypsum Hills, and it starts off a little bit like Emporia, just some nice rolling hills, and then about Medicine Lodge, just south of Sun City, so about 35 miles in, it's like nothing you've ever seen. It's like it looks like Arizona, Mars. It's I've heard all of that. It's red dirt, it's mesas and buttes with white gypsum rock. So you've got these colors that are just beautiful. I mean, red dirt with white rock and green grass, just amazing. And then just the topography, just these steep buttes and mesas that are out of nowhere. Just an amazing course.
Yeah, it's so unexpected, sort of as
Mm-hmm.
someone with very little to no experience in Kansas, and certainly not on the dirt roads and more rural areas of Kansas. So for the listener, we've been talking about it. It's on the southern side, the southern tip of Kansas, and also sort of the western. Is that
Mm-hmm.
right?
Correct. Yeah. If
And
you
as the route goes, you're heading towards Oklahoma
right.
and then back,
Right.
right?
Yeah. If you were to take Kansas and fold it in half, east and west, and that line right there is about where Pratt Medicine Lodge is, and so we are,
Okay.
basically in the start of western Kansas, and then about we're about 45 miles north of the Oklahoma border is where Pratt
Okay.
is. So.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And you were describing the terrain. I mean, obviously, like these vistas and
Mhm.
buttes and red dirt. Are you on dirt roads? Are you on double track? What's sort of the
Yeah.
mixture that
So
you ended up achieving?
Yeah, so it's a little of both, or several different types of terrain. Pratt is known for a lot of brick roads. So when you're actually in the town, you start off on a brick road, and there's several brick roads in town. It's kind of a neat, just I grew up on Main Street, and at the time it was a brick highway. But yeah, you start off on brick, you get some asphalt, and then you go into some dirt, more dirt roads. There is some gravel, but a lot of it is more of a dirt sand base. And yeah, go down there, and then when you get down into the Gypsum Hills, we've got permission from some landowners, and they let us go on their ranches. And so then you go into the double track, and sometimes it's just cattle trails. Sometimes we're trying to connect areas, and the rancher just mows a swath of grass, and you've now got to go through the grass to get to the next spot. So it really is it's a unique type of course. There's we do put some pavement in there, so it's not completely all gravel, but that pavement I think helps people a little bit get a break from some of the rougher stuff. But it's just a good mixture of pavement and dirt roads, and just some incredible. I mean, there's almost places where you think you're on a cyclocross course, places where you think you're on a mountain bike course, places where you think you're on a road race, and places where you think you're on a gravel race. So it's got something for everyone. Um, yeah,
Yeah, it's got something for everyone to love and
yeah,
probably something for everybody to hate,
it's
depending on
right.
their skill set.
That's right. Yeah. In fact, somebody once said it's like, man, your race is like the great equalizer. Like there's no bike or no style that is suited for that rate. Like that is just
Yeah,
suited exactly for that. So yeah, I took that as a great compliment.
as you should.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So let's get into some specifics. What are the distances of the events?
Yeah. So we've got a 200K, which is our main event. In fact, when I created it, that was the only distance I was going to do. I didn't care about a shorter distance. Was just going to do a 200K. And as I was developing it, I had several people ask me if I would put together a shorter course that they didn't feel comfortable doing 200K or about 126 miles, and they wanted a shorter version. So we have I call it the 100K plus, and it's a 100K plus because one year somebody got upset because I was calling it the 100K and it was like 68 or 69 miles, and so they're like, 100K is 63 miles. This is
Yeah.
68 miles. So okay, I'll put a
As,
plus
as,
on the end of it.
as someone who watched their odometer in the Leadville 100 click over to 100 and find myself not at the finish line, I definitely
Right,
resonate with those remarks.
right. No, I do the same thing too, and when I race, and so yeah, I get it.
um, and is it actually an out and back on the same roads?
No, so the 200 is almost a complete loop. There's very few roads that you'll be on twice.
Okay.
The 100K plus is a kind of like a little bit of like a lollipop. So you go out, you make a fairly good sized loop, probably about a 30 or 40 mile loop, and then I get maybe a little bit less, but yeah, 30-mile loop, and then ride kind of the same route back. And then we
And
also have go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say there's a third option for how to participate.
There
right?
is, yeah. That's what, yeah. So there's the tour, and so that goes on the 200-mile or the 200K course, but it's split up into 2 days, and so you ride about 78 miles the first day, camp at a authentic guest ranch out there, and then and they have catered dinner and breakfast for you, and then you ride back. And so,
Yeah, it's an option I hadn't really seen before in that same
mm-hmm.
context. I mean, there's obviously like the XL version of any given race
Mm-hmm.
that you're out there on your own and you're expected to sleep in a ditch.
Mm-hmm.
But I really liked, as I was reading the description of the 200K tour, that you go out, you could have dropped your camping gear
Right.
off, or you could stay in the lodge. Mm-hmm. Now I'm learning that you can get a nice meal.
Yep.
That sounds like a great way to spend a weekend.
It really is. And I wanted, the purpose of that was I wanted riders to see, and the reason why I only wanted the 200K course is because that's where the really cool route is, and the really cool topography. You still get some of it on the 100K, don't get me wrong, but the 200K you see quite a bit more. And I knew there were riders that wouldn't feel comfortable in their ability to do that all at once. And so by putting this tour together, it kind of at your own pace, it's non-competitive, you get to see it and then spend as much time as you want, and then finish it up the next day.
Yeah. For the 200K and the 100K, is the orientation that this is a race and some people are going for it and there wants to be a winner?
Yeah, definitely on the 200K. We do podium for that. The 100K, I never did a podium for until last year. And so finally last year, and we'll see if I keep doing that. I'm most likely will keep a podium for the 100K because there are people that were taking it pretty seriously, and so I felt like it was worth awarding those people for doing that. And so the 200K is again the big one. The 100K, we'll still give you an award for the top three, male and female, but it's just those two categories.
Yeah. And what year? So 2024, how many editions will we have seen at that point?
Yeah, so this will be our 7th year, which is just just incredible. Our first year, I told my wife, I was like, we need about 100. I think I counted like 106 people based on our fees that to kind of break even. And I told her, I was like, if we don't get that. We'll count this as kind of a learning lesson. Some people pay for an MBA, some people pay, for other experiences. This will be an experience, and this will be a learning experience, whether we have 100 people, whether we have 50 people, or whether we have 300 people. And if we have to pay for that experience, great. Hopefully we can, have a success and whatnot. So our first year, like I said, my goal was to get right around 100. I think the first day we had like 60 or 70 people register the first day, and it was just like completely blew my mind. I was like, okay, this is, I don't know, this is interesting.
That's what I think that is interesting about the Midwest. I think, obviously there's so many passionate cyclists there. Mm-hmm. So many of them either have done Unbound or can't get into Unbound or are training for Unbound. Because I think your event's a little bit earlier in the year. It's pretty natural that there's just going to be this pent up demand. And if you give riders a good experience, they're going to come back and they're going to tell their friends.
Right. Yeah. That's, and we've grown every year since then. We held it in 2020 when a lot of races were kind of taking a break that year. And we had to adjust it. And that was a learning lesson too, because the race is at the end of April, COVID hit, about the middle to end of March.
Yeah.
So we knew, we had to make a decision pretty quickly that we were going to have to at least postpone it. We moved it to June. And it's kind of funny if you watch the COVID numbers, like it took this dip right the weekend of the race. And
I remember that in June, yeah.
And then the weekend after it climbed back up. We weren't a super spreader by any means, but just the way it happened.
I think it's so interesting, just the business of event production as well, that people tend to forget about. I mean, you look at how much it costs to register, but on your end, as I know and understand, there's just so much that goes into it, from catering
Right.
to, a podium structure to a
Yeah.
PA system
Hmm.
to making sure there's safety out there on the course, a sweep, aid stations. Like it's
Yeah.
definitely, to your point, like you couldn't start that first race without committing a certain amount of dollars out of your pocket with
Right.
the unknown whether you were going to
Yeah.
get 100 more than 100 people to join.
Right. And that's kind of like, I'm very passionate about like grassroots because I get it, for the people that are
Yeah.
starting races, that they're taking they're taking a chance on, creating something and potentially being out of money, potentially not going how they wanted it to go their first year, learning lessons. So, we had a local race in Kansas a couple weekends ago, and I wasn't able to attend it, but I they would hit me up with questions, and I would kind of give them some help and whatnot. And so it's just kind of neat to watch them, and then to get hear the responses that people that went to that race that absolutely loved it. And so it's like, okay, cool. This is
Yeah.
neat.
That's great. How many people are you hoping to get to the 7th edition of the OpenRange?
Yeah, so I think 500s is our kind of our sweet spot. And we've been right around there the last couple of years. So yeah, we kind of cap it right around 500 and kind of hope to get to that amount. It works well for the community. We can do more, and if we get that, I think if we get that continually, then we'll look at upping it some more. But yeah, we could. That's kind of what we're looking at.
And what does it look like for someone coming into Pratt? Are
Mhm.
most athletes like finding accommodations there? What day is
Yeah,
the race on the weekend?
yeah, it's on a Saturday, and then the
Okay.
tour again would be the Friday and Saturday. But yeah,
Okay.
Saturday for the majority of the people. Yeah, what's great about Pratt is there's a community college there, and because of the community college, there's a lot of hotels and decent hotels too. So there's always plenty of room, plenty of hotels, and they're cheap. They don't gouge the riders
Yeah.
coming
On
in
race
for
weekend.
OpenRange. Yeah, so I mean for under $100 you can get a decent hotel room, so it
Yeah.
works out real well for them.
Just to give me a sense for,
Yeah.
because obviously 200K in Kansas might be different than 200K in California.
Mhm.
What do the fastest men and women tend to finish in?
Yeah, so we've had a couple years where the leaders are they're riding above a 20-mile-an-hour average, which is just
Okay.
incredible.
Yeah.
Like that is well beyond my ability. I don't get how they do it. I really, because if you see some of our terrain, I mean, you have to dismount. In fact, I put a post out today, a reel on Instagram, and the leader, you see the one and the two, they're actually dismounted and running their bikes up of a hill in that little reel. And so, yeah, for them to maintain a 20-mile-an-hour pace,
Yeah.
just incredible. I'd say the average is probably a 14 to 15 pace.
Okay.
And then we have a 9 hour cap on the 200K.
Gotcha. And are people able to ride together in some sections and ride in a peloton, or does
Oh yeah,
the terrain not allow for that?
yeah, yeah. In most sections they can. I do caution them because the roads there are sandy. That you can hit a sandy spot and then
Yeah.
not be going as fast as you were a second ago. And if you're too close, then that can cause some issues with some riders. But by and large, it's yeah, like I said, it's usually a hard packed sandy, not like beach sand the whole way.
Got it. And then at the completion of the event,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of experience do the participants get to enjoy?
Yeah, so we have live music. We've had live music every year. We've got Aaron Travis Band is a local. He calls it ag rock, so kind of red dirt, but he's actually a farmer. He lives in the same town that Martina McBride is from, in Sharon, Kansas, and so yeah, he's a great asset to have, and he gets several of his friends to come and play, and so they have we usually have live music from right around noon till 6 or 7 in the evening, and and it's right on the finish line. So as the riders are coming up the brick road, they've got a band there playing, cheering them on. People, sitting out watching them come across the finish line, and so they come across the finish line. They get a pint glass and a finisher patch for finishing. And then every year we change our logo just a little bit. Like we have our general logo that we've used from year one, and that's kind of our standard logo. But then we kind of make a tweak every year to a logo design. And so like the pint glasses are kind of collector's items because each year is different.
Yeah.
Same with the t-shirt. Each year you've got a different design on the t-shirt. And that's one thing I took from back to the kayaking is the race had a decal, and every year was a different type of sticker. And so you always wanted to see the different, and you could look at one and they never have the year on them, but you could look at them and be like, oh, okay, that was a 2012 year or whatever. So
yeah,
kind of
amazing.
Same way with us. So so they come to the finish line. They've got we give them a free meal as well, some good old Kansas barbecue, and they pick up all that stuff and have a good old time.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. So, I mean, I love how you've described the terrain and the challenges the riders are going to undertake and the different formats you have. Remind us again, the date of the event, when's registration opening up, and what's my final question? I can't even remember. And how do people can find you?
Yeah, so registration actually opens up on Saturday. Saturday is the 25th for those that may be listening to this later of November. So 25th of November at 9 Central. And we have kind of a neat thing where it's a race before the race. So we kind of want to have a little competition to see who can be the fastest to register. And if you are the fastest male and female that register for the 200K, we actually refund your registration fees. So you get to ride for free. So
I love that.
It's kind of neat. One year, it was kind of interesting. One year we had a gentleman that I think for like 2 years in a row, he was like the number 2 guy. It was just like, I felt so bad for him. Like, dude, you are so close every year. He just could not crack the win on that one. But so you don't have to be fast on the bike. You just got to be fast on the keyboard, and you'll get your registration fee comped.
I love that. I'd love that. I'd love to see others figure out how to do that in their registration process.
Oh yeah, it's fun. So this Saturday, November 25th at 9 a.m. Central is our open registration, and then the race itself is April 27th. Is that Saturday? So if you're doing the tour, of course, that'd be the 26th and 27th.
Okay. Amazing, Eric. Well, thank you for all the information. This conversation was a long time coming, but it was worth it. The event sounds amazing.
Thanks,
I love your story, and I wish you all the best of luck this year.
Thanks so much. And you can check us out openrangegravel.com, and that's kind of our handle as well for Instagram and Facebook is at OpenRangeGravel. So
perfect.
I appreciate you taking the time and letting me kind of tell the story.
Of course. That's going to do it for this week's edition of the Gravel Ride Podcast. Big thanks to Eric for coming on and telling us all about his journey to creating the OpenRange gravel event. I hope you go check it out. He's got some great videos on his website, which will be linked to in the show notes. Big thanks to our friends at Hammerhead and the Hammerhead crew too. Remember that promo code for a free heart rate monitor strap is the Gravel Ride. If you'd like to support the show, please visit buymeacoffee.com/thegravelride, or ratings and reviews are hugely appreciated. For those of you who are celebrating Thanksgiving this week, I wish you a great holiday, and here's to finding some dirt under your wheel.